The impossible species. The supreme chamber of the Galactic Council had stood for 12,000 years without a single structural change. Its crystalline walls had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the integration of 473 species, and the establishment of laws that governed half the galaxy. Today those walls would bear witness to something unprecedented. Counselor Vextheri of the Zentari Collective adjusted her sensory tendrils as she reviewed the data pad before her. The information displayed made no logical sense, which was particularly disturbing for a species that had evolved beyond emotional decision-making 3 millennia ago. "This cannot be accurate," she transmitted to her colleague, Counselor Dren, whose 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture that indicated deep concern among his people, the Korvathi. "The data has been verified 17 times, Dren replied, his translator converting his harmonic speech into the neural language understood by all council members. "The species calls themselves humans. They originate from a planet they named Earth, located in a previously uncharted spiral arm." Vextheri's tendrils quivered. "And they violate how many of our fundamental laws? By our current legal framework?" Dren pulled up a holographic display that filled the air between them with glowing red text. 47 major statutes and approximately 233 minor regulations. The other counselors were beginning to file into the chamber. First came Hierarch Morgan of the Ashkari Dominion, her scales shimmering with barely contained agitation. Behind her floated Sage Quellen of the Vares Communion, his gaseous form contained within an environmental suit that hummed softly as he moved. "I assume we are all here to discuss the human problem," Morgan said, dispensing with traditional greetings. Her species valued directness, a trait that had made them exceptional diplomats. "Problem seems an inadequate term," Quellen's voice resonated from his suit speakers. "More accurately, this represents a fundamental challenge to everything we understand about civilized species development." The chamber's central platform illuminated, signaling the beginning of the session. The Council's AI administrator, known simply as Arbiter, materialized as a column of light. "Session 9412 is now in order," Arbiter announced. Topic: First Contact Protocol Evaluation for Species Designation Human, Planet of Origin Earth. Presiding, High Chancellor Torvax. High Chancellor Torvax entered from the primary archway, his massive form causing the platform to adjust its gravitational compensation. The Draknor were the oldest species in the Council, and Torvax had served as Chancellor for 6 centuries. His wisdom was unquestioned, his patience legendary. "You would need both today." "Counselors," Torvax began, his deep voice carrying the weight of his long experience, "we face an unprecedented situation. 3 months ago, our Deep Space Monitoring Station Delta 7 detected unusual radio transmissions from System SOL-3. When our survey team investigated, they discovered a species that should not exist." A hologram appeared in the chamber's center, rotating slowly. It showed a bipedal creature, bilaterally symmetrical, with only 2 eyes and no apparent natural defenses. It looked by all accounts remarkably unremarkable. "They appear fragile," Counselor Vextheri observed. "That assessment," Torvax said, "is simultaneously correct and profoundly incorrect. I will now present the survey team's findings. I warn you, many of these facts will seem impossible." The hologram shifted, showing Earth itself, a blue-green marble rotating peacefully in the void. "First," Torvax continued, "their planet of origin possesses a gravity rating of 1.0 standard units." Several counselors shifted uncomfortably. The standard unit was based on the average of all known inhabited worlds. Most species evolved on planets with gravity between 0.6 and 0.8 standard units. Only a handful managed to develop civilization above 0.9. Their atmospheric composition includes 21% free oxygen. A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. Free oxygen was highly reactive and corrosive. Most species required no more than 12%. 21% was considered toxic to most council members. "Their star," Torvax pressed on, "is a G-type main sequence, producing radiation levels that require all survey team members to wear protective shielding. Humans evolved to not only tolerate this radiation but require it for proper biological function." "Impossible," Morgan breathed. "Such a world would be classified as hostile, unsuitable for advanced life." "There is more," Torvax said grimly. "Their planet has experienced at least 5 major extinction events, each eliminating over 70% of existing species. Humans evolved after the most recent event, approximately 200,000 years ago." 200,000? Quellen's gaseous forms swirled in agitation. That's barely any time at all. Our species took 3 million years to develop language, another 2 million to discover fire. Humans discovered fire approximately 100,000 years ago, Torvax replied. They developed written language 8,000 years ago. Electricity 150 years ago. Nuclear fission 80 years ago. And 3 weeks ago, they achieved faster-than-light travel. The chamber erupted in chaos. Counselors transmitted protests, questions, and disbelief in a cacophony that overwhelmed even arbiters' translation matrices. Torvax raised one massive claw, calling for silence. I have not yet reached the most disturbing findings. What could possibly be more disturbing than a species that achieves FTL in such an absurdly short time span? Dren demanded. The hologram changed, showing a human standing upright. Labels began appearing around the figure, highlighting various anatomical features. Humans, Torvax explained, are persistence predators. They evolved to chase their prey across vast distances until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They possess the most efficient thermal regulation system our xenobiologists have ever encountered. On their homeworld, they can run continuously for hours in conditions that would kill most species within minutes. They possess a skeleton on the inside of their body rather than the outside, making them remarkably resistant to physical trauma. Their bones can partially heal after breaking, something we previously thought impossible in a sentient species. They can lose up to 40% of their blood volume and survive. They can function with only half of their primary processing organ, what they call a brain, intact. Vextheri's tendrils had gone completely still, a sign of shock in her species. Are you suggesting that humans are nearly indestructible? No, Torvax said. I am stating as fact that humans are extraordinarily resilient in ways that violate our understanding of how complex intelligent life should function. But there is something even more significant than their physical capabilities. He paused, his ancient eyes sweeping across the assembly. Their psychology. The hologram shifted again, this time showing various scenes from Earth. Humans in groups, humans building, humans creating art, humans caring for their young and elderly. By all established psychological profiles, Torvax continued, humans should have destroyed themselves long ago. They possess aggressive tendencies typical of apex predators. They form tribal groups and demonstrate strong in-group preference. They are capable of extraordinary violence. Then why haven't they annihilated themselves? Morgan asked. Because, Torvax said softly, they are also capable of extraordinary compassion. They form bonds across genetic lines, adopt children who are not biologically theirs and care for pets. Other species, with the same dedication they show their own young. They create art for its own sake. They explore not for resources but for curiosity. They have a concept they call humanity, which refers not to their species, but to the quality of showing kindness and empathy. They are, he concluded, a walking contradiction. And that brings us to the central problem. Arbiter's voice cut through the silence, displaying current legal violations. The air filled with text, scrolling slowly so all could read. Law 47 Alpha, Torvax read aloud. Species developing FTL capability must do so without the use of nuclear technology. Humans achieved FTL through a fusion-enhanced warp drive. Law 15 Delta. Species must achieve global unification before space colonization. Humans have 207 separate governmental entities. Law 3 Gamma. Species must eliminate warfare before council admission. Humans currently have 18 active armed conflicts on their homeworld. The list continued. Humans consumed other living creatures, something considered barbaric by most council species. They kept animals in captivity. They still utilized combustion engines despite having cleaner technology. They had entertainment media that glorified violence. By our laws, Torvax said, humans should be quarantined, their FTL capability restricted until they meet minimum civilization standards. This process typically takes 2,000 to 3,000 years. Then what is the debate? Quellen asked. The law is clear. The debate, a new voice rang out, is that your laws are wrong. Every sensory organ in the chamber focused on the entrance. Standing there, without escort or formal introduction, was a human. She was tall for her species, approximately 1.8 meters, with dark skin and hair braided in intricate patterns. She wore a simple uniform bearing an insignia that none of them recognized. Most striking were her eyes, brown, warm, and utterly fearless as they swept across the assembled council. My name is Captain Zara Okonkwo, she said, her voice clear and steady. And I'm here to tell you why you should reconsider everything you think you know about civilization. High Chancellor Torvax's expression was unreadable. Captain Okonkwo, you were not invited to this session. This is a closed council proceeding. Zara smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several counselors deeply uncomfortable. It showed teeth, predator instinct they thought, but also genuine warmth. With respect, Chancellor, I've spent the last 3 weeks listening to your people study us like laboratory specimens. I've cooperated with every scan, every interview, every invasive question about our history and biology. Now it's my turn to speak. You have no authority here, Morrigan interjected. Your species is not a council member. No, Zara agreed. But I have something better than authority. I have a story. And if you're as wise as your reputation suggests, Chancellor Torvax, you'll hear me out. The chamber was silent. By all protocols, the human should be removed. But something in Torvax's ancient intuition told him this moment mattered. Very well, he said. Speak, Captain Zara Okonkwo of Earth. Tell us your story. Zara walked to the center of the chamber, standing beneath the holographic displays showing all of humanity's violations of council law. She looked small in that vast space, surrounded by beings far older and more powerful than herself. But she didn't look afraid. You judge us by your standards, she began. By laws written by species who evolved on gentle worlds, with abundant resources and few natural predators. You created rules based on your experience. But your experience isn't universal. She gestured to the hologram of Earth still rotating above them. Our world tried to kill us. Every day in every way. And we didn't just survive. We thrived. We learned to cooperate not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Every human achievement you see came from overcoming impossible odds. You call us violent? Yes, we are. But we learned to channel that violence into sports, into competition, into driving ourselves to be better. You call us divided? Yes, we are. But those divisions make us stronger. Every culture brings new ideas, new solutions, new ways of thinking. You say we haven't eliminated warfare? You're right. But we've gone 70 years without global conflict, despite having weapons that could destroy our entire planet. Do you know what kind of restraint that requires? What kind of constant choice to be better than our worst instincts? Vextheri's tendrils stirred. You speak eloquently, Captain. But words do not change facts. You are dangerous. Yes, Zara said simply. We are dangerous. But not to you. We're dangerous to problems. To challenges. To anything that says, this is impossible. You want to know why we achieved FTL so quickly? Because a 12-year-old girl named Maria Santos refused to accept that the math didn't work. She kept trying, kept failing, kept trying again until she found a solution that every expert said was impossible. You want to know why we haven't destroyed ourselves? Because 100,000 times every day humans make the choice to be kind when they could be cruel. To help when they could walk away. To build when they could destroy. She turned slowly, making eye contact with each counselor. Your laws are based on fear. Fear that a young species might be reckless, might be violent, might upset the order you've built. But we're not asking for permission to be dangerous. We're offering you something you've forgotten in your 12,000 years of peace. And what is that? Torvax asked quietly. Zara's smile returned, fierce and proud. Hope. Progress. The possibility that the universe still has surprises left. That there are still problems worth solving, challenges worth facing, discoveries worth making. We don't fit your boxes because we were never meant to. And maybe, just maybe, your boxes are too small. The chamber fell silent as her words echoed in the vast space. Then, slowly, High Chancellor Torvax rose to his full height. Captain Okonkwo, he said, you have given us much to consider. This council will adjourn to deliberate. You will have our answer in 3 days. As Zara was escorted from the chamber, Torvax looked at his fellow counselors. He saw confusion, fear, excitement and uncertainty in their faces. Well, Quellen said softly, this is certainly unprecedented. Indeed, Torvax agreed. The question before us is simple yet profound. Do we adjust our understanding of civilization to accommodate humanity? Or do we enforce laws that may no longer serve their intended purpose? We reconvene tomorrow at first light, he announced. Each of you will prepare arguments for your position. But I will say this. For 12,000 years, the Council has represented the best of galactic civilization. Now we must decide what best truly means. As the counselors filed out, Torvax remained, staring at the hologram of Earth. A death world that produced dreamers. Predators who chose compassion. A contradiction that might just change everything. The Advocate. The observation deck of Station Harmony offered a view unlike any other in known space. Here, at the Council's primary diplomatic facility, representatives from across the galaxy could look out at the swirling nebula known as the Luminal Veil and contemplate the vastness of existence. Captain Zara Okonkwo stood at the reinforced window, watching colors that had no names in human languages dance across space. Behind her reflection, she could see the approaching figure of Counselor Dren. "Captain," the Korvathi said, his 4 eyes examining her carefully. "May I join you?" "It's a big window," Zara replied, not turning around. "Plenty of room." Dren moved beside her, his shorter stature placing his eyes at the level of her shoulder. For a moment, they stood in silence, watching the nebula pulse with ancient light. "I wish to apologize," Dren said finally. "The council session yesterday, we were not prepared for your arrival." "I noticed," Zara said drily. "Security seemed particularly unprepared. I walked right past 3 checkpoints. Your people need better training." Despite himself, Dren's throat sac inflated slightly, the Korvathi equivalent of a chuckle. "You are not what we expected. Let me guess. You expected us to be more primitive? More aggressive? Maybe show up waving nuclear weapons and demanding territory?" "Yes," Dren admitted honestly. The psychological profiles suggested that early contact humans would likely display dominance behaviors or territorial aggression. "You displayed neither." Zara finally turned to look at him. "Your profiles are based on species that evolved in environments nothing like Earth. You're trying to predict human behavior using alien psychology. That's like trying to understand water by studying fire because they're both fluids." "Water is not a fluid," Dren said automatically. "It is a liquid. On Earth we use fluid to describe anything that flows. Liquids and gases." Dren's eyes blinked in sequence. "Fascinating. Your language permits broader categorization. This must allow for more flexible thinking. Or it just makes us sloppy," Zara said with a slight smile. "Depends on perspective." "Indeed." Dren was quiet for a moment, then spoke carefully. "May I ask you something, Captain? Not as a counselor, but as someone genuinely curious." "Go ahead. Are you afraid? Being here, alone, representing your entire species to a council of aliens who hold your future in their appendages?" Zara considered the question seriously. "Terrified," she said finally. "Every moment. But fear doesn't mean I stop. It means I'm paying attention." "That," Dren said softly, "is exactly what concerns the council. You are afraid yet you proceed anyway. Most species would retreat, would seek safety. Humans seem to embrace danger." "Not embrace," Zara corrected. "Respect. There's a difference. We know fear keeps us alive, but we also know that everything worth doing is scary. The first humans to cross the ocean were terrified. The first to climb mountains, to explore caves, to go to space, all terrified. We just decided that discovering what's on the other side matters more than the fear of getting there. Even when the other side might kill you? Especially then." Dren's throat sac deflated, a sign of deep thought. "The council reconvenes in the morning. There will be debates about humanity's fate. I wanted to inform you that I have decided to argue for accepting humans as a provisional member species." Zara's eyebrows rose. "Really? Yesterday you seemed ready to quarantine us for 1,000 years. Yesterday I believed our laws were absolute truths, tested by time and proven by 473 successful integrations." Dren's eyes met hers. "Today I wonder if our laws are merely comfortable traditions. Your words, they disturbed me. In a good way, I think." "What changed your mind?" "Something you said about the 12-year-old child. Maria Santos." Dren's eyes glowed slightly. "On my world, mathematics is taught by the eldest members of society, those with centuries of accumulated knowledge. The idea that a juvenile, one barely past childhood, could revolutionize faster-than-light theory is impossible?" Zara suggested. "Inspiring," Dren corrected. "On my world, we would have told that child to wait, to study, to learn the traditional methods for decades before attempting innovation. We would have suffocated her genius with protocol." He looked back at the nebula. "Perhaps that is what we are doing to your entire species. Suffocating you with our protocols because we have forgotten what it means to be young and bold and foolish enough to try impossible things." "We're not that foolish," Zara said. "We know we have a lot to learn. But we also have things to teach." "Such as?" Zara gestured to the station around them. "How old is Harmony Station?" 4,000 years old. It has been upgraded many times, but the core structure dates back to the early council era. In 4,000 years, has anyone suggested building a new station? Dren blinked. Why would we? This station functions perfectly. That's my point. You've achieved such stability that you've stopped innovating unless something breaks. You maintain but you don't create. You preserve but you don't explore. Stability is valuable, Dren said defensively. It prevents the chaos that destroyed so many pre-council civilizations. Stability is valuable, Zara agreed. But so is growth. So is change. So is the occasional mistake that leads to an unexpected discovery. She pulled out a small device from her pocket, a human smartphone, ancient by council standards but still functional. See this? 50 years ago, my ancestors had computers that filled entire rooms. 20 years before that, they used mechanical calculators. Humans have existed as a technological civilization for maybe 200 years, and we've revolutionized our entire way of life dozens of times. Yes, Dren said. That rapid change is precisely what concerns many counselors. It suggests instability, unpredictability. Or adaptability, Zara countered. The universe changes, counselor. Stars die, planets shift, resources deplete. A civilization that can't adapt dies with them. We've survived 5 extinction events because we could adapt. Can the council say the same? Dren was silent for a long moment. That, he said finally, is an uncomfortable question. The best questions usually are. Captain Okonkwo. A new voice called across the observation deck. Both Zara and Dren turned to see Counselor Vextheri approaching, her sensory tendrils waving in what Zara had learned to recognize as agitation. Counselor Vextheri, Zara greeted cautiously. The Zentari had seemed particularly hostile during yesterday's session. I have been reviewing the data from your vessel's arrival, Vextheri said without preamble. There are irregularities. What kind of irregularities? Dren asked sharply. Vextheri's tendrils pointed at Zara. Your ship, the Perseverance, achieved faster-than-light travel using a method that should not work. Our physicists have examined your drive system. The mathematics are correct, but they require a level of precision in manufacturing that exceeds our own capabilities. Zara shifted uncomfortably. Is that a problem? It is paradoxical, Vextheri said, her tendrils curling in frustration. How does a species barely past their first FTL flight create components more precise than civilizations that have been manufacturing such drives for millennia? We had motivation, Zara said simply. And we really wanted it to work. That is not an adequate explanation. Actually, a new voice interjected, it's the perfect explanation. A holographic figure materialized beside them. Arbiter, the council's AI administrator. Unlike the simple column of light it presented in the council chamber, here it appeared as a vaguely humanoid form of shifting geometries. Arbiter, Vextheri said, her tendrils straightening in surprise. You rarely manifest outside official sessions. I rarely have reason to, Arbiter replied. However, I have been conducting my own analysis of the human situation, and I believe I can clarify Counselor Vextheri's confusion. Please do, Dren said. Arbiter gestured, and holographic displays materialized around them, showing complex mathematical equations and engineering schematics. The Zentari are correct that human manufacturing precision exceeds established norms. However, they are analyzing this from the wrong perspective. Explain, Vextheri demanded. Council species typically develop FTL capability after achieving near-perfect theoretical understanding. You design the drive in simulation, perfect every variable, then manufacture components to match the ideal design. This process takes centuries but results in highly reliable, standardized technology. Correct, Vextheri confirmed. That is the proper method. Humans, Arbiter continued, did the opposite. They built the drive first, then kept manufacturing increasingly precise components until it worked. They brute forced their way to FTL through trial and error. Zara shrugged. Pretty much, yeah. We built about 70 failed prototypes before the Perseverance. 70? Dren's eyes widened. The resource expenditure must have been enormous. It was worth it to prove we could fly to the stars. But this is madness, Vextheri protested. The risk of catastrophic failure, the waste, the inefficiency, was acceptable to them, Arbiter interrupted. And herein lies the fundamental disconnect between council psychology and human psychology. You see their method as inefficient. They see your method as too slow. Both perspectives are valid, Arbiter continued. But they lead to very different civilizations. The council prioritizes safety and efficiency. Humans prioritize results and speed. Neither is objectively superior. Yes, it is, Vextheri insisted. Our method has worked for 473 species over 12,000 years. The data clearly shows that your method works for species psychologically similar to yourselves, Arbiter said. The data also shows that no species in council history has achieved technological advancement as rapidly as humanity. Both statements are true. Zara watched the exchange with fascination. The AI seemed to be defending humanity? Or at least providing perspective. Arbiter, she said carefully, can I ask you something? You're an artificial intelligence created by the council. Why are you providing information that contradicts their position? I am providing information that is accurate, Arbiter replied. My purpose is to serve truth, not convenience. The council created me to be objective, and I have concluded that their laws regarding species integration may require revision. That is not your role, Vextheri said sharply. It is precisely my role, Arbiter countered. I analyze data without emotional bias. And the data suggests that humanity represents an anomaly that current council framework cannot adequately address. Show us, Dren said. The holographic display shifted, showing a complex web of data points. This is a psychological profile of all council species at the time of first contact. Note the clustering of traits: low aggression, high cooperation, extended developmental periods, strong risk aversion. The display shifted again. Now observe where humanity falls on these metrics. A single red point appeared, far outside the cluster of other species. Humans are aggressive but also cooperative, Arbiter explained. They have short developmental periods but complex social structures. They are highly risk-tolerant but also capable of long-term planning. They are, in essence, statistical outliers in every category. Outliers are rare but they are not impossible, Dren observed. Correct, Arbiter agreed. However, consider this. The Council's laws were designed to integrate species within the normal distribution. They assume certain psychological baselines. Humanity falls so far outside these baselines that the laws themselves become illogical when applied to them. Give an example, Zara requested. Law 3 Gamma requires species to eliminate warfare before Council admission, Arbiter said. This law was created because warfare, for most Council species, represents catastrophic loss of control, a regression to primal behaviors they have evolved beyond. But for humans, warfare is different, Arbiter continued. Your species wages war for ideological reasons, for resources, for territory, but you also wage war against disease, poverty, ignorance. You use the same word for violent conflict and for mobilizing resources toward a goal. The human war on cancer terrified our translators until they understood it was metaphorical. Zara couldn't help but laugh. I can imagine that was confusing. The point, Arbiter pressed on, is that human warfare, while concerning, serves different psychological functions than warfare in species the Council has previously encountered. Applying the same law to both situations is like using the same medical treatment for two completely different diseases. Vextheri's tendrils had gone still, her species' sign of deep concentration. You are suggesting that humans require different laws entirely. I am suggesting, Arbiter said, that the Council's one-size-fits-all approach to species integration is revealed as inadequate by humanity's existence. Not because humans are wrong, but because the assumption that all intelligent life must follow similar developmental paths is flawed. This is heresy, Vextheri breathed. The Council's laws are foundational. To question them is to question 12,000 years of civilization. I am not questioning their value, Arbiter replied calmly. I am questioning their universality. Perhaps the Council's greatest achievement is not in creating perfect laws, but in being wise enough to revise them when presented with new information. Dren's throat sac inflated thoughtfully. You make a compelling argument, Arbiter. But this decision cannot rest on logic alone. There are emotional considerations. Such as? Zara asked. Fear, Dren said simply. Fear that accepting humanity means admitting our understanding is limited. Fear that changing our laws will lead to chaos. Fear that we, the Council, are not as enlightened as we believed. Those are valid fears, Zara acknowledged. But they're also familiar ones. Every human who ever did something new had to face the fear that they might be wrong. And how do you overcome such fear? Vextheri asked, genuine curiosity in her transmitted voice. Zara smiled. We don't overcome it. We acknowledge it, respect it, and then we do the thing anyway. Feel the fear and do it anyway, that's one of our oldest sayings. Madness, Vextheri said, but there was less certainty in her voice than before. Maybe, Zara agreed. But it got us here, talking to you, having this conversation. If we'd let fear stop us, we'd still be hiding in caves on Earth, afraid of the dark. Some might say that would be safer, Vextheri observed. Safer isn't always better, Zara replied. A bird in a cage is very safe, but it never gets to fly. The observation deck fell silent, each of them contemplating the weight of the metaphor. Finally Dren spoke. Captain Okonkwo, the council session tomorrow will determine humanity's fate. I have decided to support provisional membership. But I must warn you, I am only one vote among many. Counselors like Hierarch Morrigan and Sage Quellen remain deeply skeptical. What do I need to do to convince them? Zara asked. I do not know if you can, Dren admitted. Morrigan values tradition above all else. Quellen prioritizes stability. Your species represents a direct challenge to both. Then I guess I'll have to challenge them directly, Zara said. That could backfire catastrophically, Vextheri warned. Morrigan in particular, does not respond well to confrontation. Good thing I'm not planning to confront her, Zara said. I'm planning to give her something more powerful than tradition. And what is that? Arbiter asked, its geometric form shifting with curiosity. Zara's smile was enigmatic. Story time is tomorrow, Arbiter. You'll have to wait and see. As she walked away from the observation deck, leaving 3 very puzzled non-humans behind, Zara allowed herself a moment of private doubt. Her confidence was largely an act. Inside she was terrified. Tomorrow she would stand before the Galactic Council and argue for her species' future. No pressure. She pulled out her smartphone and opened a file she'd been working on since arriving at Station Harmony. It contained stories, human stories, carefully selected to illustrate specific points. If logic and data couldn't convince the Council, maybe humanity's greatest weapon would work. After all, humans had been using stories to change minds for 200,000 years. One more night shouldn't be too difficult. The trial of worth. The Supreme Chamber was packed. In 12,000 years of Council history, public sessions were rare. But High Chancellor Torvax had declared this debate open to all diplomatic personnel stationed at Harmony. The galleries that normally stood empty now teemed with representatives from across the galaxy, all gathered to witness history. Captain Zara Okonkwo stood in the presentation circle, acutely aware of hundreds of eyes, sensors and other sensory organs focused on her. Above her, the holographic display showed Earth rotating peacefully, seemingly oblivious to the fact that its fate was being decided light years away. This session is called to order, Arbiter announced. Topic: Integration status of species designation human. The Council will hear arguments for and against provisional membership, followed by final deliberation. High Chancellor Torvax presiding. Torvax rose, his ancient presence commanding immediate silence. 3 days ago, Captain Zara Okonkwo appeared before this council uninvited. Her words challenged our fundamental assumptions about civilization and progress. Today we will determine if her species deserves a place among the stars, or if they represent a danger that must be contained. He gestured to the assembled counselors. Counselor Dren of the Korvathi has requested to speak first, in favor of provisional membership. Dren stood, his 4 eyes reflecting the chamber's crystalline light. Esteemed colleagues, I have spent the past 3 days in deep contemplation. I have reviewed our laws, our history, our fundamental principles. And I have reached an uncomfortable conclusion. Our laws were written by species who feared their own primitive past. We created rules to prevent the chaos we once knew. But in doing so, we may have prevented something else entirely: evolution. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several counselors transmitted disapproval. The humans violate our laws, Dren continued. This is fact. But I ask you to consider, are these violations evidence of barbarism, or of a different path to civilization? Humanity achieved faster-than-light travel not through our careful, methodical approach, but through persistence, innovation, and acceptable risk. They are divided, yet they cooperate. They are aggressive, yet they choose peace. They are contradictions, but perhaps contradiction is not weakness. Perhaps it is strength. Counselor Dren, Hierarch Morrigan interrupted, her scales rippling with agitation. You speak of evolution, but the purpose of our laws is to prevent devolution. History shows us that unchecked aggression leads to extinction. The humans still fight among themselves. How can we trust them not to bring their warfare to the stars? A valid concern, Dren acknowledged. Captain Okonkwo, would you address the hierarch's question? Zara stepped forward. Hierarch Morrigan, may I ask you a question first? Morrigan's scales stilled, a sign of wariness. Proceed. How many wars has your species fought in the last 1,000 years? None, Morrigan said proudly. We evolved beyond such barbarism 3 millennia ago. And in that time, how many new worlds have your people colonized? Morrigan's scales flickered. We have not engaged in colonization. We have adequate resources on our existing worlds. How many new technologies have revolutionized your society? Our technology is refined, perfected over centuries. How many first contact situations have you personally experienced? This is irrelevant, Morrigan snapped. You are avoiding my question. No, Zara said gently. I'm providing context. Your species achieved peace by achieving stasis. There's no warfare because there's nothing left to fight over. No expansion because you've found your comfortable limits. No innovation because your existing solutions work adequately. She turned to address the full council. That's not a criticism. What your species have built is genuinely admirable. Peaceful, stable, sustainable civilizations that have lasted longer than human recorded history. But you've paid a price for that stability, you've stopped growing. Growth is not inherently valuable, Sage Quellen interjected, his gaseous form swirling. Stability prevents suffering. Would you argue that suffering is preferable to peace? No, Zara said. But I would argue that the complete elimination of challenge leads to stagnation. Humans fight, yes. But we don't just fight each other. We fight disease, ignorance, mortality itself. Every war we wage against a human problem teaches us something that makes us stronger. She pulled up a holographic display. This is Dr. Marcus Chen. 70 years ago, during one of Earth's darkest periods, he was imprisoned for his political beliefs. In that prison, with almost no resources, he developed a mathematical framework that would later enable quantum communication. He did it because he had nothing but time and a refusal to let his mind stagnate. Another image appeared. This is Commander Yuki Tanaka. She survived a spacecraft malfunction that killed her entire crew. Alone in space for 3 weeks, she MacGyvered. We have a word for improvising solutions. A communication system from spare parts and damaged equipment. The techniques she invented are now standard emergency protocols. This is Father Emmanuel Rodriguez. He negotiated peace in a civil war that had lasted 30 years. Not through military force or political pressure, but by building a school that educated children from both sides of the conflict. It took 15 years, but those children grew up knowing each other as classmates, not enemies. Image after image appeared, humans who had faced impossible situations and refused to surrender. Each story was different, but the theme was constant. Humans found ways forward. You ask if you can trust us not to bring warfare to the stars, Zara said. I can't promise we'll never have conflicts. But I can promise that when we do, we'll fight to solve problems, not to dominate others. We'll fight to protect the weak, to expand knowledge, to overcome obstacles. That's what humans do. We see a problem and we engage with it. Engaging with problems is how you spread them, Morrigan argued. Your conflicts could engulf peaceful species. Or, Dren interjected, humanity could engage with problems the Council has learned to ignore. How many unsolved challenges do we face? How many questions have we stopped asking because we've grown comfortable with not knowing? What do you mean? Counselor Vextheri asked. Arbiter materialized in the chamber's center. If I may provide data, there are currently 17 major scientific questions that the Council has classified as acceptably unknown. These are problems that, after centuries of research, we have determined are either unsolvable or not worth the resource investment to solve. That seems prudent, Quellen observed. Perhaps, Arbiter said. But I submitted these questions to the Human Scientific Database. Within 48 hours, I received preliminary theoretical frameworks for 12 of them. The humans have been aware of FTL travel for less than a year, yet they've already proposed 7 modifications to improve drive efficiency. The chamber erupted in noise. Counselors transmitted shock, disbelief, and in some cases what seemed like excitement. Impossible, Vextheri transmitted. These problems have stumped the Council's best minds for centuries. The human solutions are unorthodox and would require extensive testing, Arbiter clarified. But they are theoretically sound. The humans approached the problems from completely different philosophical angles than we did. Different how? Torvax asked, his deep voice cutting through the chaos. Council scientists explore methodically, building on established knowledge, Arbiter explained. Human scientists, they make intuitive leaps. They guess, test, fail, and guess again. It's statistically inefficient but occasionally produces breakthrough insights that pure logic might never reach. Zara seized the moment. That's what we're offering you. Not just our species as members but our perspective as partners. You've built something incredible, 12,000 years of peace, cooperation, and stability. But you've also built walls. Walls that keep out chaos, yes, but also keep out possibility. We're not asking you to tear down those walls, she continued. We're asking you to build a door. Let us in, let us learn from you, and let yourselves learn from us. Let us challenge your assumptions while you temper our recklessness. Let us ask the uncomfortable questions while you provide the wisdom to know which answers to pursue. You speak of partnership, Morrigan said, but you fundamentally misunderstand the power dynamic. The Council has guided galactic civilization for 12 millennia. We are not equals to a species that achieved FTL travel last month. You're absolutely right, Zara agreed, and several counselors transmitted surprise at her concession. We're not equals. In experience, in knowledge, in diplomatic sophistication, you surpass us in every measurable way. Then why should we treat you as partners? Morrigan pressed. Because, Zara said, wisdom without curiosity becomes dogma. Experience without challenge becomes stagnation. And knowledge without question becomes assumption. She let that hang in the air before continuing. Every species in this chamber has something valuable to contribute. The Zentari's logical frameworks, the Korvathi's diplomatic nuance, the Ashkari's traditional wisdom, the Varesa's philosophical depth. These are gifts to galactic civilization. And humanity's gift is that we haven't learned to stop dreaming impossible dreams. Pretty words, Quellen said, his form condensing slightly. But the Council makes decisions based on precedent and data, not dreams. Then let me give you data, Zara said. She gestured, and a new display appeared. This is a human concept called the Kardashev scale. It measures a civilization's technological advancement by energy consumption. Type 1 civilizations can harness all the energy of their planet. Type 2 their star. Type 3 their galaxy. We're familiar with this scale, Vex Theory transmitted. The Council collectively represents a Type 2 civilization, approaching Type 3. Right? Zara confirmed. By your estimates, it took the Council approximately 8,000 years to reach Type 2 status. Humanity is currently at about 0.7 on the scale, not even Type 1 yet. But our energy consumption has doubled every 15 years for the past 2 centuries. She pulled up a graph showing an exponential curve. At our current rate of growth, we'll reach Type 1 status in approximately 50 years. Type 2 in 300 years. Type 3 in 800 years. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. That's impossible, Vex Theory finally transmitted. No species advances that quickly. No species you've encountered, Zara corrected. But we do. Because we have to. Our world taught us that standing still means death, so we learned to run. And then we learned to love running. This data could also be interpreted as evidence of dangerous expansionism, Morrigan observed. You consume resources at an unsustainable rate. Currently, yes, Zara admitted. Which is why we need guidance. We need the Council's experience in sustainability, in long-term planning, in balancing growth with preservation. We need you to teach us how to channel our energy into constructive rather than destructive directions. And if we refuse? Morrigan asked. If we enforce our laws and quarantine your species until you meet minimum standards? Zara met her gaze steadily. Then we'll meet those standards eventually on our own without your guidance. It'll take us a few hundred years, maybe 1,000. We'll make mistakes, probably catastrophic ones. We'll stumble, we'll fall, we'll get back up. And when we finally qualify for Council membership by your standards, we'll be a very different species than we are now. That sounds preferable, Quellen said. Less risky for the Council. Maybe, Zara said. But you'll also lose something irreplaceable. Right now we're young, enthusiastic, eager to learn and desperate to contribute. We see the Council as mentors, as guides, as the civilization we hope to become. Quarantine us for 1,000 years and we'll see you as obstacles. As the civilization that held us back when we needed help most. Are you threatening us? Morrigan's scales flashed warning colors. No, Zara said firmly. I'm telling you the truth. Humans have long memories and strong feelings about being caged. Help us now and we'll remember you as partners. Quarantine us and we'll remember you as jailers. The choice is yours, but so are the consequences. High Chancellor Torvax had been silent throughout the exchange, his ancient eyes watching everything. Now he spoke, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. Captain Okonkwo, you argue passionately for your species. But I notice you have not addressed perhaps the most serious concern. Your species still engages in warfare. By your own admission, 18 conflicts currently rage on Earth. How can we invite a warring species into our peaceful civilization? Zara took a deep breath. This was the question she'd known was coming, the one she'd prepared for most carefully. Chancellor Torvax, may I tell you a story? A story? Yes. It's about a human named Viktor Petrov. 200 years ago, his nation was at war with another nation over resources and ideology. Viktor was a soldier, trained to fight, expected to kill. She pulled up an image, a young man in an old military uniform, eyes haunted by things he'd seen. Viktor's unit was ordered to assault an enemy position. But when they arrived, they found it wasn't a military base. It was a hospital. The enemy had hidden weapons there, yes, but there were also sick children, elderly patients, medical staff. Viktor's commander ordered the attack anyway. Military targets trumped civilian concerns, that was the law of war. But Viktor refused. He stood down, put down his weapon, and walked into that hospital unarmed. He told the enemy soldiers inside that he would help evacuate the civilians, and then they could fight. Did they kill him? Dren asked softly. No, Zara said. They were so shocked by his action that they agreed. Viktor and his unit worked alongside enemy soldiers for 6 hours, evacuating every civilian from that hospital. Then, as promised, they fought. Viktor died in that battle. The chamber was utterly silent. But the story doesn't end there, Zara continued. The enemy soldiers who fought Viktor told his story. It spread through both armies. Within a month, both sides began negotiating peace. Within a year, the war was over. Viktor's refusal to prioritize victory over humanity, that concept I mentioned, sparked a change that ended a conflict that had killed millions. One man changed the course of a war? Vexthery's tendrils waved in disbelief. One man reminded everyone else that they were still human, Zara said. That even in war there are lines we shouldn't cross. That victory means nothing if we lose ourselves achieving it. She looked around the chamber. Yes, we still have wars. But we also have humans like Viktor in every conflict, making choices to be better than their circumstances demand. We have soldiers who share food with enemy children. We have generals who refuse unlawful orders. We have civilians who hide refugees regardless of which side they're from. You're arguing that human warfare is somehow noble? Morrigan challenged. I'm arguing that human warfare is complicated, Zara replied. We fight, yes. But we also restrain ourselves. We create rules of engagement, international laws, war crime tribunals. We hold ourselves accountable even when it's difficult. We struggle constantly between our capacity for violence and our desire for peace. And yes, we fail sometimes. But we keep trying. She turned to address Torvax directly. You asked me how you can invite a warring species into your peaceful civilization. I'll tell you how. You can believe that a species capable of war can also be capable of choosing peace. You can believe that violence and compassion can coexist in the same heart. You can believe that humanity's internal struggle to be better than our worst instincts is exactly the kind of strength your civilization needs. Or, she added quietly, you can believe that peace is only possible through the elimination of all capacity for conflict. That safety requires the suppression of anything dangerous. That civilization means conformity. But if you believe that, she finished, then you've already lost what made the council worth joining in the first place. The chamber remained silent as her words echoed in the vast space. Zara stood in the center, feeling the weight of countless eyes upon her, knowing she'd said everything she could say. Finally, High Chancellor Torvax spoke. The council will now deliberate. Captain Okonkwo, you are dismissed while we discuss your fate. As Zara left the chamber, she caught Dren's eye. The Korvathi's throat sac inflated slightly, encouragement she'd learned. But she also saw Morrigan's scales, still flashing warning colors, and Quellen's form, condensed with doubt. She'd given them everything she had. Now all she could do was wait, and hope that 12,000 years of civilization hadn't made them too rigid to change. The deliberation. The Supreme Chamber felt different without the human present. High Chancellor Torvax observed his fellow counselors as they settled into deliberation positions. Centuries of experience had taught him to read the subtle signs of each species, the angle of Morrigan's scales, the density of Quellen's gaseous form, the pattern of Vexthery's tendril movements. What he saw troubled him. The council was divided, perhaps more deeply than at any point in his 6 centuries of service. Before we begin formal deliberations, Torvax said, I would hear initial impressions. Speak freely, this is not yet time for formal positions. Counselor Dren was first. The human made compelling arguments. Her species is dangerous, yes, but danger is not inherently evil. A storm is dangerous. So is fire. We do not eliminate these forces, we learn to harness them. A storm does not make choices, Hierarch Morgan countered. Fire does not have ambitions. Humans do. They are not forces of nature to be harnessed but autonomous beings with unpredictable motivations. Are we not also autonomous beings with motivations? Bexthery asked. Why do you assume human motivations will be destructive? History, Morgan said flatly. Every aggressive species in council records that was not properly integrated caused conflict. The Scarran incident. The Vrex expansion. The Tellurian Wars. In each case, the council's failure to enforce proper standards led to suffering. Those situations were different, Dren argued. The Scarrans were genuinely xenophobic. The Vrex were expansionist conquerors. The Tellurians refused all diplomatic contact. Humans have shown none of these traits. Yet, Morgan emphasized. They have shown none of these traits yet. They are a young species meeting their first alien civilizations. We have no data on how they will behave once the novelty fades. Sage Quellen's form shifted, drawing attention. I find myself conflicted. The humans' arguments about stagnation disturb me. I have long believed our stability to be our greatest achievement. But I wonder, have we confused stability with inertia? Elaborate, Torvax requested. When was the last time the council attempted something genuinely new? Quellen asked. Not an upgrade, not a refinement, but a fundamental innovation? The human arbiter mentioned, the one who proposed 7 FTL drive modifications in 48 hours, she has been aware of FTL travel for less than one of her planet's years. Meanwhile, our own scientists have spent centuries on incremental improvements. Incremental improvements accumulate, Vex theory transmitted. Over 12,000 years, they have given us the most advanced civilization the galaxy has ever known. Have they? Quellen challenged. Or have they given us the safest civilization? There is a difference. Arbiter materialized without being summoned, its geometric form pulsing with urgency. Chancellor, I have additional information that may be relevant to your deliberations. Proceed, Torvax said. While the council has been in session, I continued analyzing human data. I have discovered something unexpected. The AI projected a complex graph. This shows the correlation between technological advancement and societal cooperation across all council species. The graph showed a clear pattern. As species became more technologically advanced, their levels of cooperation increased while their conflict decreased. It was a smooth, predictable curve that encompassed every council member. Now observe where humanity falls on this chart. A red dot appeared, far outside the normal distribution. Humans are simultaneously more technologically advanced and more conflict-prone than any species at a comparable stage of development should be. By our models, this combination should be impossible. A species this prone to conflict should have destroyed itself long before achieving FTL. Yet they did not, Torvax observed. Correct, Arbiter confirmed. Which suggests our models are incomplete. Humanity represents a data point that contradicts 12,000 years of sociological theory. Are you suggesting we revise our entire understanding of civilization based on a single species? Morgan demanded. I am suggesting, Arbiter said carefully, that a theory which cannot account for observed data is, by definition, flawed. The scientific method requires us to update our models when confronted with contradictory evidence. But this is not merely academic, Vex theory protested. We are discussing the potential integration of a species that could destabilize everything we have built. Or, Dren interjected, we are discussing the potential integration of a species that could revitalize everything we have built. Counselor Dren, you have been unusually vocal in support of the humans, Morgan observed. May I ask why? Yesterday you seemed as concerned as the rest of us. Dren's eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of emotional honesty among his people. Because Captain Okonkwo reminded me of something I had forgotten. Do any of you remember what it felt like when your species first discovered they were not alone in the universe? The chamber fell silent as each counselor retrieved memories, personal or historical, of that momentous discovery. My species' first contact was 3,000 years ago, Dren continued. It was the most exciting moment in our history. We spent decades preparing for integration, learning everything we could about the council, eager to contribute and explore. We were young and bold and convinced we would change the galaxy. And did you? Torvax asked softly. No, Dren admitted. We learned council protocols. We adopted council standards. We became exemplary members by becoming exemplary conformists. And somewhere in that process we lost our spark. We became safe, predictable, reliable, everything the council valued. But we stopped dreaming of changing the galaxy. He looked around the chamber. How many of you can say the same? How many of us joined the council with grand visions and settled for comfortable integration? Several councillors shifted uncomfortably. It was clear Dren had touched a nerve. That is not failure, Morgan insisted. That is maturity. Wisdom. The recognition that stability is more valuable than novelty. Is it? Dren challenged. Or is that simply what we tell ourselves to justify our comfortable complacency? This is not productive, Vextheri interrupted. We are here to discuss humanity's integration, not to engage in philosophical navel-gazing about our own species' choices. Are we not? Quellen asked. Because I believe that is precisely what we must discuss. The humans are forcing us to confront an uncomfortable truth. We have built a civilization that values safety above growth, conformity above innovation, peace above progress. Peace is progress, Morgan said forcefully. Peace enables progress, Quellen corrected. But they are not synonymous. We have achieved remarkable peace. But have we achieved remarkable progress? When was the last time a council species made a discovery that fundamentally altered our understanding of the universe? The Varan equations, Vextheri transmitted. Approximately 400 years ago. 400 years, Quellen repeated. 4 centuries since our last major breakthrough. Meanwhile, humans have fundamentally revolutionized their entire civilization 17 times in the past 200 years. Rapid change is destabilizing, Morgan argued. Rapid change is adaptation, Dren countered. And adaptation is survival. The universe does not care about our desire for stability. Stars die, planets shift, resources deplete. A civilization that cannot adapt eventually faces a challenge it cannot overcome. Are you suggesting the council is vulnerable? Morgan's scales flashed warning colors. I am suggesting the council is untested, Dren said. We have not faced a major crisis in millennia. We have not needed to adapt because our circumstances have remained favorable. But circumstances change. And when they do, will we have the capacity to change with them? The humans, he continued, have adapted to 5 extinction events. Their homeworld has tested them in every conceivable way, and they have not merely survived, they have thrived. That is not a threat. That is exactly the kind of resilience we should value. High Chancellor Torvax had remained quiet throughout the exchange, but now he spoke. Councillor Dren makes thought-provoking arguments. However, we must address the practical concerns. Arbiter, in your analysis, what are the genuine risks of human integration? Arbiter's form pulsed as it processed. Analyzing. There are 3 primary risk categories. First, cultural contamination. Human values and methods could influence council species in unpredictable ways. Second, resource competition. Humans' rapid expansion could strain galactic resources. Third, conflict escalation. Human involvement in council affairs could introduce previously unknown forms of dispute. And the potential benefits? 4 primary categories. First, innovation acceleration. Human approach to problem-solving could catalyze breakthroughs across multiple fields. Second, adaptive capacity. Human resilience could provide models for crisis response. Third, psychological diversity. Human emotional range and decision-making could complement existing council cognitive frameworks. Fourth, cultural enrichment. Human arts, philosophy, and social structures could expand council understanding of possible civilizations. You present risks and benefits, Morgan observed, but you do not weigh them. Which outweighs which? That, Arbiter said, is not a calculation I can make. The question is not mathematical but philosophical. How much risk is acceptable for how much potential reward? That is a value judgment that must be made by conscious beings, not by artificial intelligence. A diplomatic non-answer, Vextheri transmitted with what might have been amusement. An honest one, Arbiter replied. I can provide data. I cannot provide meaning. That is your responsibility. Torvax nodded slowly. Then let us discuss meaning. High Chancellor's prerogative, I will hear from each of you in turn your philosophical position. Not legal arguments or strategic concerns, but your genuine belief. Should humanity be admitted to the council? He turned to the youngest councillor present. Counselor Nereus of the Thon Collective. You have been quiet. Speak your mind. Nereus, who had been appointed only 50 years prior, stirred. Her species communicated through chromatic patterns on their skin, which Arbiter translated instantly. I want to say yes. The captain's words resonated with me. But I fear I want to say yes for the wrong reasons. Explain, Torvax requested. I am bored, Nereus admitted, her skin flushing with embarrassment colors. My entire service has been routine administrative tasks. I review trade agreements, mediate minor disputes, approve standard protocols. It is important work, but it is not exciting. The humans represent something new, something unpredictable. And I find myself wanting that so desperately that I question my own judgment. Honest, Torvax acknowledged. Thank you, Counselor Nereus. Your courage in admitting this is valuable. He turned to another counselor. Sage Marin of the Crystalline Consortium. Your perspective. Marin's crystal structure rang with harmonic tones. I am ancient even by council standards, the translation provided. I have witnessed 7,000 years of council history. And in that time, I have seen us grow more cautious with every passing century. Once we welcomed new ideas eagerly. Now we treat novelty with suspicion. I wonder if we have not become what we once feared, a rigid structure resistant to change. But you have not answered the question, Morrigan pressed. Should we admit humanity? Marin's crystals chimed thoughtfully. I believe we should. Not because they are ready for us, but because we need them. We need something to shake us from our comfortable assumptions. Whether that wisdom or folly, only time will tell. The deliberations continued for hours. Each counselor spoke, revealing positions that were far more nuanced than Torvax had anticipated. The council was not simply divided between those who supported or opposed humans. Most fell somewhere in between, seeing valid arguments on both sides. Finally, as the station's cycle approached evening phase, Torvax called for a brief recess. We will reconvene in 2 hours for final arguments and voting, he announced. Use this time to reflect carefully. The decision we make today will echo through centuries. As the counselors dispersed, Torvax remained in the chamber. Arbiter's form materialized beside him. You are troubled, Chancellor, the AI observed. I am old, Arbiter, Torvax said. Older than any currently serving counselor. I have seen much, decided much. But this decision feels different. Because the stakes are higher? Because I am not certain what the right answer is, Torvax admitted. For 6 centuries I have guided the council with confidence. Today I find myself as uncertain as a newly appointed administrator. Perhaps uncertainty is appropriate, Arbiter suggested. The humans have a saying, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. It appears in their ancient texts from a philosopher named Socrates. Torvax's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. The humans have philosophers named after philosophers. Fascinating species. Indeed. Chancellor, may I offer an observation? Please. You are uncertain because there is no precedent for this situation. No historical data to guide you, no established protocol to follow. You must make a choice based not on what has been done before, but on what should be done now. That is not a burden of your position. That is the privilege of leadership. Wise words, Arbiter. Did the humans teach you that too? No, Arbiter said. You did. Approximately 400 years ago, when you argued for revising the trade regulations despite strong opposition. You said, and I quote, "We honor our past by building a better future, not by endlessly repeating what came before." Torvax was silent for a long moment. I had forgotten I said that. The council's entire database remembers, Arbiter said. As do I. Perhaps it is time to remember why you believed it. As Arbiter's form dissolved, Torvax remained in the empty chamber, contemplating the choice before him. In 2 hours he would cast the deciding vote in a deadlocked council. He could feel the division among his colleagues. The question was not whether humanity deserved membership. The question was whether the council deserved to evolve. And for the first time in centuries, High Chancellor Torvax did not know the answer. The verdict. Captain Zara Okonkwo paced the small observation room adjacent to the council chamber. Through the transparent wall, she could see diplomats and representatives from dozens of species gathering, waiting for the council's decision. She could feel their eyes on her, some curious, some sympathetic, some openly hostile. Her communication device chirped. It was a message from Earth, delayed by the vast distance but transmitted the moment the council had convened. She opened it, seeing her mother's face fill the small screen. Zara baby. I know you won't get this until after everything is decided, but I wanted you to know. The whole world is proud of you. Whatever happens, you represented us with dignity and courage. Come home safe. Love you." The message ended. Zara felt tears prick her eyes but blinked them away. Astronaut training had taught her to compartmentalize emotions, but sometimes the compartments leaked. The door slid open. Counselor Dren entered, his posture weary. "Captain Okonkwo, may I join you?" "It's your station," Zara said. "I'm just a guest. Or a prisoner awaiting judgment. I'm not sure which." Dren's throat sac deflated, Korvathi sadness. "I am sorry you have been made to feel that way. Whatever happens, you are not our prisoner. Just someone whose entire species' future hangs in the balance?" Zara attempted a smile. "No pressure." Dren moved to the window, looking out at the assembled crowd. "I have been a counselor for 200 years. I have voted on thousands of matters. This is the first time I genuinely do not know which way the vote will fall." "How does it work? Simple majority?" "For standard matters, yes. But integration of a new species requires a supermajority, 80% approval. With 23 voting counselors currently present, you need 19 favorable votes." Zara's stomach sank. 19 out of 23? That seems impossible given how divided everyone appeared. "It is intended to be difficult," Dren explained. "The decision to welcome a new species affects all council members. The threshold is high to ensure broad consensus." "So basically we're doomed." "Not necessarily." Dren's eyes glinted with something Zara couldn't quite read. "High Chancellor Torvax has not revealed his position. His influence is considerable. If he argues persuasively for humanity, others may follow. And if he argues against us? Then yes," Dren admitted. "You are, as you say, doomed." They stood in silence, watching the crowd grow larger. Zara noticed patterns, species clustering with those similar to themselves, creating distinct groups. The Zentari delegated stood apart, their tendrils waving in synchronized communication. The Ashkari formed a tight cluster, scales flickering in complex patterns. The gaseous Vares floated in a loose cloud, their forms occasionally merging and separating. "You're all so different," Zara observed. "How did you make it work? How did 473 species with completely different biologies, psychologies, and cultures manage to build something this stable?" "Time," Dren said simply. "And willingness to compromise. The first 100 species took 3,000 years to establish the Council's foundational principles. Each new species that joined brought challenges, required adjustments. But gradually, a common framework emerged. And you think humans can fit into that framework?" Dren's eyes focused on her with surprising intensity. "I think humanity could revolutionize that framework. But that is precisely what terrifies my colleagues." Before Zara could respond, a tone chimed through the station. The council was reconvening. Dren straightened, his formal posture returning. "It is time," he said. "I must return to the chamber. Captain Okonkwo, whatever happens, know that you have given the council much to consider. You have already changed us, regardless of today's vote." As he left, Zara moved closer to the window. Through it, she could see into the council chamber. The councillors were taking their positions, their various forms arrayed in a circle around the central platform. High Chancellor Torvax stood at the chamber's apex, his massive form imposing even among such diversity. His voice, translated and amplified, reached even into Zara's observation room. "Councillors of the Galactic Assembly, we reconvene to render judgment on species designation human, petition for provisional council membership. Before we vote, I will offer my final assessment." The chamber fell absolutely silent. Zara held her breath. "I have served this council for 600 years, Torvax began. "In that time I have overseen the integration of 47 new species. Each integration followed established protocols. Each new member was measured against our standards and found acceptably conforming. We welcomed them not because they would change us, but because they would fit seamlessly into what we had already built." Zara's heart sank. This sounded like a prelude to rejection. "Humanity," Torvax continued, "does not fit seamlessly. They violate our standards in numerous ways. They are aggressive where we value peace. They are divided where we value unity. They are reckless where we value caution. By every metric we have established, they are unsuitable for council membership." Zara closed her eyes. It was over. "And that," Torvax said, his voice carrying an unexpected edge, "is precisely why we should admit them." Zara's eyes snapped open. Several counselors transmitted surprise so strong that even the translation matrix struggled to convey it. For 12,000 years, Torvax went on, the council has grown through addition, not through transformation. We have accumulated species but not diversity of thought. We have expanded territory but not understanding. We have achieved remarkable stability and in doing so, have mistaken stillness for strength. He paused, letting his words sink in. The humans are right about one thing, we have grown comfortable. So comfortable that we have forgotten that the universe does not reward comfort. It rewards adaptation. We have built walls of protocol and procedure that protect us from chaos but also insulate us from growth. Chancellor, Hierarch Morrigan interjected, her scales rippling with agitation. Surely you are not suggesting we abandon 12 millennia of carefully developed law simply because one charismatic human gave a persuasive speech? No, Hierarch, Torvax replied. I am suggesting we evolve 12 millennia of law because it has ceased to serve its original purpose. Our laws were created to protect emerging civilizations from the mistakes that destroyed their predecessors. But somewhere along the way, protection became restriction. Safety became stagnation. He gestured to the holographic display still showing Earth. Humanity does not need our protection. They need our guidance. They need our experience, our wisdom, our hard-won understanding of galactic community. And we, though it pains me to admit, need their energy, their innovation, their refusal to accept that the way things are is the way things must be. Sage Quellen's gaseous form swirled. Chancellor, even if we accept your philosophical argument, practical concerns remain. How do we integrate a species so fundamentally different from established norms? By changing the norms, Torvax said simply. Arbiter, display my proposal. The AI materialized, projecting a complex document. The Chancellor has drafted a new integration framework, designated Protocol Omega. It establishes a provisional membership category with distinct requirements and oversight structures. As Arbiter explained the details, Zara leaned forward, struggling to follow the technical terminology. But the core concept was clear. Instead of forcing humans to meet existing standards, Torvax was proposing to create new standards specifically for species like humanity. Under Protocol Omega, Arbiter continued, humanity would be granted provisional membership with the following conditions. 1. A council mentor species assigned to provide guidance and cultural mediation. 2. Restricted access to certain technologies pending demonstrated responsibility. 3. Mandatory participation in council educational and diplomatic programs. 4. A review period of 100 years before full membership consideration. This is unprecedented, Vextheri transmitted. We have never created special categories for individual species. Because we have never encountered a species like humanity, Torvax replied. Our current framework is predicated on the assumption that all intelligent life follows similar developmental paths. Humanity proves that assumption false. We can either cling to a comfortable fiction or acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. And if other species demand similar special treatment? Morrigan challenged. If every new contact wants their own customized protocols? Then we evaluate each case on its merits, Torvax said. Is that not what wisdom requires? The flexibility to judge each situation uniquely rather than applying inflexible rules regardless of context. That sounds like the absence of law, Morrigan protested. Like arbitrary decision-making based on political considerations. It sounds like justice, Dren interjected. Laws serve justice, not the other way around. If our laws cannot accommodate a genuinely exceptional case, then our laws are insufficient. The debate continued, counselors arguing passionately on both sides. Zara watched, fascinated despite her anxiety. This was democracy at a scale humans had never attempted. 23 different species, each with their own perspective, trying to reach consensus on a matter that would affect all of them. Finally, Torvax raised a claw for silence. We have debated thoroughly. It is time to vote. The question before the Council, shall humanity be granted provisional membership under the proposed Protocol Omega framework? A supermajority of 19 favorable votes is required. Councilors, register your votes. In the observation room, Zara felt her heart hammering. This was it. Everything her species had worked for, dreamed of, hoped for, decided in the next few moments. Arbiter's voice echoed through the chamber. Voting concluded. Tallying results. The pause felt eternal. The vote is 19 in favor, 4 opposed. The measure passes. The chamber erupted. Some councilors transmitted jubilation, others protest, still others shock. In the observation room, Zara felt her knees weaken. She grabbed the window edge for support. They'd done it. Humanity was in. However, Arbiter continued, cutting through the noise, the Chancellor's proposal includes an additional provision requiring immediate approval. The chamber quieted again. Protocol Omega mandates assignment of a mentor species to guide humanity's integration. Chancellor Torvax proposes that this role be filled by the Korvathi Collective, with Councillor Dren serving as primary liaison. This appointment requires simple majority approval. Dren's 4 eyes went wide with surprise. Clearly he hadn't known about this part. Councillor Dren has demonstrated genuine interest in understanding humanity, Torvax explained. His species' diplomatic expertise and his personal commitment to this cause make him ideally suited. Do any councillors object? Surprisingly, Hierarch Morrigan spoke. Despite my reservations about humanity's admission, I acknowledge that if we are to proceed with this unprecedented experiment, Councillor Dren is the appropriate choice. The Ashkari Dominion supports this appointment. One by one, other councillors voiced agreement. Within minutes, the vote was unanimous. Then it is decided, Torvax declared. Effective immediately, humanity is granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council under Protocol Omega. Councillor Dren will coordinate integration efforts. Captain Zara Okonkwo will serve as humanity's interim representative pending formal diplomatic establishment. He turned toward the observation room, somehow making eye contact with Zara despite the distance and different visual spectrums. Captain Okonkwo, you may enter the chamber. Zara walked through the door on legs that felt disconnected from her body. The assembled councillors turned their attention to her. This small, fragile human who had somehow convinced 12,000 years of civilization to change course. She reached the central platform and stood before High Chancellor Torvax, who towered over her like a living monument. Captain Okonkwo, Torvax said, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome humanity to the stars. We do so with hope, with caution, and with the understanding that both we and you will be changed by this relationship. Thank you, Chancellor, Zara managed, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. Humanity is honored by your trust. We will work every day to prove worthy of it. See that you do, Torvax replied. The galaxy is watching. You have convinced us to rewrite our laws for your species. Now you must prove that our faith was not misplaced. No pressure, Zara said, echoing her earlier words to Dren. To her surprise, Torvax's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Indeed. Welcome to galactic civilization, Captain. Try not to burn it down in your first week. As the chamber dissolved into activity, councillors approaching to offer congratulations or warnings, Arbiter organizing administrative details, representatives from across the gallery descending to meet the human who had changed everything. Zara felt a hand on her shoulder. Dren stood beside her, his eyes gleaming with what she now recognized as satisfaction. Well, Captain. It seems we are partners now. Yeah, Zara said, still processing everything. Looks like you're stuck with us. Or you are stuck with us, Dren replied. I am not certain which of us should be more concerned about that. Despite everything, Zara laughed. It was a very human sound in that alien chamber, but somehow it felt right. Humanity had made it to the stars not by becoming less human, but by being undeniably, impossibly, stubbornly themselves. And the galaxy had blinked first. The transformation. 3 months after humanity's admission to the Galactic Council, Captain Zara Okonkwo stood in the newly established Earth Embassy on Station Harmony and wondered how everything had changed so quickly. The embassy was a compromise between human aesthetics and council functionality, familiar furniture awkwardly fitted with alien technology, earth plants growing under spectrum-adjusted lighting, a coffee maker that looked absurdly primitive next to the molecular food synthesizers. It was perfectly human, making do, adapting, refusing to completely surrender identity while embracing the new. Her communication console chimed. Councillor Dren's face appeared, his 4 eyes blinking in the pattern she'd learned meant urgency. Captain, we have a situation. Can you come to conference room Epsilon immediately? On my way. 10 minutes later, Zara entered the conference room to find an unexpected assembly. Dren was there, along with Councillor Vex Theory, Arbiter's holographic form, and 3 humans she recognized from Earth's scientific community. Dr. Rajesh Patel, chief physicist, Dr. Amara Johnson, xenobiologist, and Marcus Cross, engineer extraordinaire. What's going on? Zara asked. Dr. Patel spoke first, his excitement barely contained. Zara, Captain, we've had a breakthrough. A major one. Define major. The quantum entanglement communication problem, Dr. Johnson interjected. The one the council said was acceptably unknown for the past 800 years? We solved it. Zara blinked. You solved an 800-year-old problem? In 3 months. Actually, 2 months, Marcus corrected. The first month was just trying to understand the council's mathematical notation. Once we translated everything into human frameworks, the solution was relatively straightforward. Relatively straightforward, Vex Theory transmitted, her tendrils quivering in what Zara had learned to recognize as profound agitation, is not how I would describe mathematics that has stumped the council's finest minds for centuries. That's why we're here, Dren explained. Your scientists submitted their findings through proper channels. The council's review committee? Well, they don't believe it's possible. But it is possible, Dr. Patel insisted. We've run the simulation 17 times. The math is sound. Show me, Zara requested. For the next 20 minutes, the 3 scientists walked her through their discovery. Zara understood perhaps 1 word in 10, her expertise was piloting, not quantum physics, but even she could see the elegance of their solution. They'd approached the problem from an entirely different angle than council scientists, asking different questions and arriving at unexpected answers. This would revolutionize instantaneous communication across galactic distances, Dren said quietly. No more lightspeed delays. Perfect synchronization across the entire council space. Which is why the review committee is resisting, Vex Theory transmitted. If they accept your solution, they must acknowledge that human methods, chaotic, intuitive, illogical by their standards, can succeed where their careful, methodical approaches failed. Politics, Zara said flatly. Science is always political when egos are involved, Dr. Johnson said. We knew this might happen. That's why we came to you. We need someone with diplomatic authority to push this through. What do you need from me? Arbiter's form pulsed. The solution requires practical demonstration. Dr. Patel's team proposes to build a prototype. However, this requires resources and authorization that only council approval can grant. And the council won't approve, Zara guessed, because that would mean admitting they were wrong. Not entirely, Dren corrected. Some counselors are genuinely skeptical. The human approach is so different from established methods that it seems impossible. They need proof. Then we'll give them proof, Zara decided. Marcus, what do you need to build a working prototype? Marcus pulled up a list. Most of the components are standard council technology. We'd just be assembling them in a new configuration. The real challenge is getting permission to attempt something this experimental on Station Harmony. Leave that to me, Zara said. Dren, can you help navigate the bureaucracy? I am your official mentor, Dren replied. It is literally my job. Over the next week, Zara discovered that galactic bureaucracy was remarkably similar to Earth bureaucracy, frustratingly slow, maddeningly complex, and absolutely essential for preventing chaos. She filled out forms, attended committee meetings, gave presentations to skeptical administrators, and slowly, incrementally won approvals. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sage Marin, the ancient crystalline counselor who had supported humanity during the vote, personally intervened. I am old enough to remember when new ideas were celebrated rather than feared. Marin's harmonic tones rang through a council session. Let the humans try. If they fail, we have lost nothing but some resources. If they succeed, we all benefit. With Marin's support, the final approvals came through. Dr. Patel's team began construction of the prototype in a remote section of the station, working alongside council engineers who ranged from fascinated to openly hostile. Zara visited the construction site daily, watching the unlikely collaboration develop. Human and alien engineers struggled to communicate at first, not because of language barriers which Arbiter handled but because their fundamental approaches were so different. They keep asking for complete specifications before they'll do anything, Marcus complained during one visit. I keep trying to explain that we're figuring it out as we go, but they look at me like I'm insane. You are testing their entire worldview, Dren observed. He'd become a fixture at the site, mediating between human intuition and council methodology. For them, construction without complete planning is like jumping off a cliff without knowing if you can fly. But that's exactly how humans made the first airplane, Marcus protested. I know, Dren said. That is what terrifies them. Despite the philosophical differences, progress continued. The prototype took shape, a quantum entanglement array that looked like a cross between a super collider and a Christmas tree, with components from a dozen different council species integrated in ways their original designers had never imagined. This is either going to work brilliantly or explode spectacularly, Dr. Johnson observed during final assembly. Probably both, Marcus said cheerfully. Those aren't mutually exclusive. The test was scheduled for exactly 6 weeks after humanity's admission, a timeline that still seemed impossibly short to the council engineers involved. A small group gathered for the activation: the human science team, several counselors including Dren and Vex Theory, Station Harmony's chief administrator, and High Chancellor Torvax himself. Chancellor, Zara said, surprised by his presence. I didn't expect you to attend personally. I have lived long enough to recognize genuinely historic moments, Torvax replied. Whether this succeeds or fails, it represents something important. No pressure, Dr. Patel muttered. Actually, significant pressure, Torvax said. But I suspect you humans work well under such conditions. The prototype hummed to life, its various components glowing with carefully tuned energies. Dr. Patel monitored readouts, making minute adjustments. Beside him, a council physicist named Wheeler watched with barely concealed skepticism. Initiating quantum entanglement sequence, Dr. Patel announced. If this works, we should achieve instantaneous communication with the test receiver on the far side of the station, approximately 15 light seconds away. And if it doesn't work? Wheeler asked. Then we'll learn something, adjust and try again, Dr. Patel said simply. This casual attitude toward potential failure clearly disturbed Wheeler, but he remained silent. The prototype's hum increased in frequency. Lights flickered across its surface in complex patterns. Then, with a sound like a crystal bell, it stabilized. Entanglement achieved, Dr. Patel read from his display. Coherence holding at 99.7%. That's actually better than our simulations predicted. Send the test message, Marcus urged. Dr. Patel input a simple phrase, hello from 6 weeks of human science. On the display showing the receiver's output, the message appeared. Not seconds later, after light-speed transmission. Not milliseconds later, after computational processing. But truly, measurably, simultaneously. The room was silent. Run it again, Vex Theory transmitted. There must be an error. They ran it again. And again. And 17 more times with increasingly complex messages. Each time, perfect instantaneous transmission. Not faster than light, that would violate fundamental physics. But through quantum entanglement, bypassing distance entirely. It works, Wheeler breathed. By all the ancient stars, it actually works. Dr. Patel allowed himself a small smile. Told you the math was sound. High Chancellor Torvax stepped forward, examining the prototype with ancient eyes. Dr. Patel, your team has achieved something remarkable. But I must ask, how did you solve a problem that has stumped council scientists for 8 centuries? We asked a different question, Dr. Patel explained. Your scientists were trying to force quantum particles to behave consistently across distance. We asked, what if instead of forcing consistent behavior, we embraced quantum uncertainty and used it as a feature rather than fighting it as a bug? I don't understand, Torvax admitted. Neither did we at first, Dr. Johnson said. But humans are used to working with systems we don't fully understand. Our own brains, our ecosystems, our societies, they're all too complex to fully model. So we've learned to find patterns in chaos rather than eliminating chaos to find patterns. You're saying your advantage is that you're comfortable with not understanding? Vex Theory's tendrils waved in confusion. We're saying our advantage is that we don't wait for complete understanding before we act, Marcus clarified. We observe, we hypothesize, we test, we learn, we adjust. Understanding comes through iteration, not before it. Dren's throat sac inflated, fascination. That is, actually a profound philosophical difference. We seek to understand before we act. You seek to understand through action. Exactly, Zara said. It's not that one method is better than the other. They're different tools for different problems. Your method is better for refinement, for safety, for long-term stability. Ours is better for breakthroughs, for speed, for adaptation. Torvax was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to address the room. 3 months ago, I argued that humanity should be admitted to the Council because they would change us. Today, I see the first evidence of that change. And I find it encouraging. Chancellor? Wheeler asked. For 800 years, we accepted that quantum communication was impossible, Torvax said. We stopped trying because we had failed so many times. We became comfortable with limitation. Then humans arrive, ignore our comfortable limitations, and achieve the impossible in 6 weeks. That's not a criticism of your scientists, he added quickly. It is an observation about the danger of assuming anything is acceptably unknown. Sometimes questions need fresh eyes, preferably eyes that don't know the question is supposed to be unanswerable. So what happens now? Zara asked. Now, Torvax said, we begin the process of integrating this technology into council infrastructure. And we acknowledge that perhaps Protocol Omega should work both ways, humanity learning from the council, but also the council learning from humanity. That was not part of the original agreement, Vex Theory transmitted. No, Torvax agreed. But rigid adherence to original agreements is how we ended up with 800 years of unsolved problems. Perhaps flexibility is worth the discomfort. As news of the breakthrough spread through Station Harmony, Zara noticed a shift in how other species regarded humanity. The initial curiosity mixed with caution was transforming into something more complex. Respect, yes, but also excitement. Humans weren't just new members to be integrated. They were catalysts for change. Not everyone welcomed this change. Some species found human methods disturbing, even threatening. But others, particularly younger representatives, began seeking out human collaboration. The embassy suddenly had a waiting list of alien scientists, engineers, and thinkers who wanted to understand how humans approach problems. We're becoming mentors, Dr. Johnson observed one evening as they reviewed yet another collaboration request. We've been council members for 3 months, and other species are asking us to teach them our methods. Is that appropriate? Zara wondered. We're supposed to be learning from them. Why not both? Dr. Patel suggested. The best learning is bidirectional. Counselor Dren had similar thoughts. Captain Okonkwo, we need to discuss something important. They met in one of the embassy's informal spaces. Zara had insisted on having areas where people could just sit and talk without the formality of conference rooms. Dren had taken to these human-style conversations surprisingly well. What's on your mind? Zara asked, offering him a beverage. Dren had discovered he enjoyed Earth tea, which Zara found endlessly amusing. Protocol Omega includes provisions for council oversight of human activities, Dren said. The intention was protective, preventing humanity from making catastrophic mistakes while learning galactic norms. But, Zara prompted, sensing there was more. But the quantum communication breakthrough has made many counselors question whether the oversight should be reciprocal. Some are suggesting that council scientists should be required to consult with human researchers on long-standing problems. That seems presumptuous, Zara said. We've been here 3 months. You've been here 3 months and solved an 800-year-old problem, Dren countered. That has weight. Chancellor Torvax is proposing an amendment to Protocol Omega that would establish formal Human Council collaborative research initiatives. How do you feel about that? Dren's eyes blinked thoughtfully. Terrified and excited. Much like I have felt constantly since meeting your species. But I think it is right. The Council has much to teach humanity about stability, patience, and long-term thinking. But humanity has much to teach the Council about innovation, adaptation, and accepting productive failure. Productive failure? A human concept I have been studying, Dren explained. The idea that failure can generate valuable information. For Council species, failure is something to avoid. For humans, failure is part of the process. We don't enjoy failing, Zara clarified. No, but you do not fear it enough to prevent action. That is the difference. Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent summons. High Chancellor Torvax had called an emergency council session. As Zara and Dren rushed to the chamber, they passed clusters of diplomats speaking in urgent tones. Something significant had happened. The council chamber was already full when they arrived. Torvax stood at the center, his expression grave. Councilors and representatives, we have received a distress signal from the peripheral territories. A mineral survey team on planet Keeler 4 has encountered a critical equipment failure. Their life support systems are compromised. They have approximately 72 hours before atmospheric toxicity reaches lethal levels. Maps appeared in holographic display, showing Keeler 4's location. It was far from any council worlds in a region with minimal infrastructure. Rescue ships have been dispatched, Torvax continued, but the closest vessel will not arrive for 96 hours. By standard protocols, we must prepare to accept that the survey team will be lost. Standard protocols are unacceptable, Hierarch Morrigan declared. These are 15 council citizens. We cannot simply abandon them. We are not abandoning them, Torvax said. We are acknowledging the reality of distance and physics. No ship in the fleet can reach them in time. Zara listened to the debate, her mind racing. Something about the situation felt familiar. Then it clicked. Commander Yuki Tanaka, the astronaut who had MacGyvered a solution to her own crisis. Chancellor, she called out, standing. May I speak? Captain Okonkwo? You're saying no existing ship can reach them in time using standard travel methods. What about non-standard methods? Explain, Torvax requested. The Perseverance, humanity's first FTL ship, is currently docked at Harmony. Our drive system is unconventional by Council standards. We might be able to reach higher speeds through shorter periods. Your ship is experimental and potentially dangerous, Vex Theory transmitted. It has made precisely one successful FTL journey. Yes, Zara admitted. But that's one more than any other option right now. If I push the Perseverance beyond recommended specs, you could tear your ship apart, Dren interrupted. Or I could save 15 people, Zara countered. Seems like acceptable risk to me. The chamber erupted in debate. Some counselors argued that risking human lives to save others was illogical. Others pointed out that the Perseverance hadn't been tested for extended high-speed travel. Still others questioned whether humanity's safety protocols were adequate. Through it all, Zara stood quietly waiting for the voices to subside. When they finally did, she spoke. With respect, this isn't a complex decision. People are dying. I have a ship that might be able to reach them. If I do nothing, they're dead. If I try and fail, they're still dead, but at least I tried. If I try and succeed, they live. The math isn't complicated. The math of survival versus death is not complicated, Torvax agreed. But you are asking permission to risk your life and your ship on what may be a futile attempt. I'm not asking permission, Zara said quietly. I'm informing you of my intention as humanity's representative. This is what we do. This is who we are. She's right, Dren said, standing beside her. This is precisely the kind of situation where human psychology provides value. Our careful calculations say the rescue is impossible. Human intuition says we haven't tried everything yet. Torvax studied Zara for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, his mouth curved in what might have been a smile. 3 months, he said. 3 months and you are already ignoring protocols to chase impossible goals. Very well, Captain. Take your ship. Save our people if you can. Show us what human determination looks like. I'll need a crew, Zara said. I volunteer, Marcus Cross said, stepping forward from the gallery. As do I, Dr. Patel added. One by one the humans present volunteered. Then, to Zara's surprise, Counselor Dren spoke. I also volunteer. As humanity's mentor, I should witness firsthand how your species approaches crisis. Counselor, you've never experienced human-style FTL travel, Zara warned. It's rough. Then I will experience it now, Dren said firmly. Besides, you will need someone with authority to coordinate with the survey team. 30 minutes later, the Perseverance launched from Station Harmony at speeds that made the station's traffic controllers very nervous. Zara sat in the pilot's seat, her hands steady on controls that she'd designed herself because they made sense to human reflexes even if they baffled Council engineers. Beside her, Marcus monitored the drive systems. Behind them, Dr. Patel calculated continuously updating trajectories. And in the observer's seat, Counselor Dren gripped the armrests with all 4 hands as the ship pushed beyond tested limits. This is madness, Dren transmitted. Welcome to humanity, Zara replied, grinning fiercely as the stars stretched into lines around them. They were going to save those people. Or die trying. Either way, the galaxy was learning what it meant when humans refused to accept the impossible. To be continued.